So first off, thanks everybody for coming and joining us today. This is the second of our weekly community huddles. A few quick things to note. So as we get things started, as we're obviously a smaller team here at DevLake and DevStream, we'll be working to keep both of these huddles combined, at least to begin with. As we grow, we'll likely split them into two cohorts to keep things a bit more organized. So today we'll be covering a brief session for both DevStream and DevLake. And my hope is also for all of the developers on today's call that will also give you a really good opportunity to see both of these projects in context with one another, because there's certainly opportunities for them to collaborate more closely. Of course, the lead maintainers team for both of these is composed of some of the same people. Hezheng and myself, for example, work closely with both teams. So today we'll use this opportunity to introduce two of the most important people in these projects, the lead maintainers for both. We're also lucky enough, actually, as a kind of surprise guest, we also have Louis Zhang here on today's call, who is actually the product lead for Devlig. Louis, I won't ask you to join in today. It'll be great to have you on the next discussion. We'll save you for that one, but thanks for joining. But for all of you in the room, Louis is the product lead on Devlig and works very closely with Hezheng on driving that forward. So as a quick introduction, my name is Maxim. You've probably seen me in the Slack channels. Hopefully you'll see me many more times, and I'm always available to chat with any of you. I'm one of the community leads for both DevLake and DevStream. I'm based here in California, in Los Angeles, and really excited about what both of these products and projects are doing, which is why I'm here, right? I'm really excited to help developers bring more data, and more precision to the way they're working, and to do so with an open source framework. Like many of you guys, I'm a very big believer in that. So without taking up any more time, I'd like for our two guests today, Tiexin and Hezheng, to introduce themselves. So Hezheng, I'll have you go first if you're comfortable doing so. Maybe just a quick introduction, your role in which product you're covering, and where you're based. And then Tiexin, I'll have you go afterwards.
Hi, everyone. Really nice meeting you guys. So my name is Hezheng. I'm co-founder and CTO at Merico, also the lead maintainer for DevLake. So today I'll be covering DevLake, general architecture, why we built DevLake, and then where to get started contributing to DevLake. Thank you, guys.
Excellent. Thanks, Hezheng. Tiexin, thanks for joining us today. I know it's later on your end.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Yeah, actually, it's not so late. It's only 10 p.m. It's okay for me. I don't do AMs, but PM is okay for me. Yeah. I don't really have a base. Currently, I'm in Chengdu, which is in the southwest part of China. Not a very famous city. I prefer to think myself as a citizen of the world or a digital nomad. I was working in Europe for the past 5 years and relocated back to China last year. Yeah, I'm leading the DevStream team here. Nice to meet you guys all. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic to have you join us. And some kind of quick hidden things that I think make Tiexin and Hezheng both such incredible people and really great resources. Certainly feel free to contact them on Slack if you want to learn any more or if you have any questions for them. But Tiexin brings some really incredible experience as a former AWS Devops expert. We're so lucky to have him here on the Merico team. Hezheng has spent years at the PhD level conducting some of the most advanced research you can think of on contribution analysis. So we're really lucky to have just two of the most incredible people I've personally worked with here on the DevLake and DevStream teams. So we'll dive into our agenda. So guys, the thing that we want to cover today, and for those of you who just joined, to kind of reset the agenda and give you sense of what is going to happen today. So today we'll be covering both DevStream and DevLake. So regardless of which product you're interested in or project you're interested in, you're in the correct place. Our goal is to really combine the community, at least for these first few weekly huddles. That way everyone gets to know one another, really gets to learn everything about this ecosystem. And then in future sessions, we'll split them into huddles based off of the project. So to get started, we'll be giving the presentation over to Tiexin, leader and lead maintainer of DevStream, to provide a quick introduction to DevStream, a bit about its history, a bit about its background, a high-level introduction to some of the architecture. How is it built? What is it using? And then after Tiexin has kind of provided this kind of background, some of the context and insights into the project, we'll open up the floor for questions. And then usually we would have everyone introduce themselves before we jump into this, but we have enough people today that I think that will take up more time than we have time for. So instead, what we'll do, if you want to jump on a microphone or ask a question, I'll ask you to give maybe a quick 30, 40-second introduction of yourself before the maintainer answers your questions. So Tiexin, thanks so much for joining us, and I'll pass the microphone to you to give some background into DevStream.
Okay, thank you. It's my honor to be here tonight. Yeah, maybe I can start with a story. I think the experience with DevStream or even with Merico started way back in 2021. I think it was September or October when I first met Jinglei and Hezheng. Of course, it wasn't my idea. I was working as a DevOps engineer or consultant for the past 5-6 years, but I didn't invent DevStream or anything like that. It would be arrogant for me to say that I invented DevStream. It's nothing like that. Yeah, we had a very nice discussion about what we're going to build. And I like the idea to build the like the open source and like very open community and something unlike any of the one-stop DevOps platform. That was the original idea. But in the very beginning, it was very vague. So we didn't have much details settled down. All we wanted to do is some open source developer-facing tool for the developers and better developers. Yeah. Of course, it's still evolving until then. A few days ago, we just released the 0.5 version, and it's still constantly evolving all the time. Yeah. In short, I would say DevStream is a tool manager for DevOps tool chains. Think of it as a meta tool, which manages all the other tools. But of course, it's more than that. It not only manages all the tools, but also installs them and integrates them all together so that you can have the whole DevOps platform, which covers your whole software development lifecycle. Maybe you can have it at a click of a button within 5 minutes. That's the goal. Maybe you want to ask, why would I want to use DevStream? Because there are already a lot of like commercial products or even open source products out there. For example, if you're familiar with AWS, maybe you already heard of like AWS code pipeline, something like that, or something to that effect, right? But the goal is different. With DevStream, we didn't want to build anything from scratch, but rather we choose open source pieces and integrate them together so that you can have the perfect piece for each stage of the SDLC, software development lifecycle. That's the goal. Maybe this is too theoretical, so maybe I can give 2 examples. Of course, they are not invented by me. Again, yeah. So one example is like the package managers in the Linux world. For example, in Ubuntu, you have apt, or in CentOS, you have yum. They all manage packages for you. They install the packages for you, and they all also install dependencies as well. They can also integrate softwares with other dependencies and other softwares. Think of DevStream like that. you can choose different pieces of open source DevOps tools. With DevStream, at a click of a button, you can integrate all of them together, all installed, and within 5 minutes, and voila, you have everything. Another analogy would be the Linux distributions. For example, if you're an Ubuntu guy, maybe you prefer to use like apt or other softwares that comes with Ubuntu. Maybe you have another preferred operating system, maybe CentOS, maybe not, maybe something else. For example, if I'm building some Golang web applications, I try to use Alpine Linux because it's small, right? It makes sense. We choose different distributions because we want different features or different bundles, different softwares that come directly from them. And that is what DevStream trying to achieve. We are trying to build different like distributions of DevOps tool chains or platforms. So for example, for continuous integration, maybe you are an old-fashioned Jenkins guy. That's right. That's all right. That's totally fine. But maybe you prefer some open source choices like GitHub Actions or Travis CI, Circle CI, things like that. That's also fine. You can choose all the pieces which you want and integrate them together, which builds the DevOps platform distribution for you, specifically tailored for you. And that's a goal. I think the biggest advantage would be the flexibility you have with DevStream. You are not vendor locked in with any pieces. For example, if you don't like Jenkins anymore, you can easily take it out and replace it with something else. As time evolves, there will be a lot of new tools emerging every day. I'm sure a lot of readers here follows the CNCF radar, tech radar. There will be some new CI, CD tools or other tools which can speed up your SDLC lifecycle, right? So why using the old piece all the time if it doesn't make sense anymore, right? We should be able to replace some pieces like Legos, right? So that we can always use the latest and most advanced tools to be most efficient in software developing. That's the goal of DevOps. Of DevStream. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a great overview. And I think, you know, I talked earlier in our session today about how important it is to understand that both of these projects really do have connections to each other, you know, and I think one of the most profound connections they both have, a thing they share together is this idea, right, of the most personalized and flexible experience possible. I think it's one of the things that makes both DevStream and DevLake so exciting is I'm sure many of the developers on this call have plenty of experience with products that, you know, force a particular philosophy and don't let them connect to anything. We've wanted to create the most flexibility possible. So thanks for that fantastic background, Tiexin. Perhaps if you're comfortable doing so, we should maybe take a few minutes here, Tiexin, to go into maybe some kind of high-level architecture. You know, how is DevStream built? And then perhaps for the developers on our call today, maybe if we have a few first issues that we could introduce to the audience, that would also be a great way to kind of introduce everyone to the product and give people a great opportunity to get up to speed with it and then learn how to get started contributing.
Yeah, sure. I wanted to share a picture or image of the architecture, but I didn't have the VPN started, so I can't. But maybe I can give a very short introduction of the architecture overview. Basically, DevStream uses a core plugin architecture, which is actually not new, especially in the DevOps world. Because if you think about, for example, HashiCorp Terraform, which does this exactly in the same way. Or if we think about Ansible, which does the configuration management, it's not exactly core plugins per se, but more or less it's the same stuff because you can define different roles, which acts like a plugin, which achieves a specific goal. I think they both inspired the DevStream idea in the first place. We wanted it to be very flexible. We wanted to support a lot of different tools. So the plugin idea makes sense. At least it made sense in the very beginning. That's why we made this decision. In the beginning, we used the Golang plugin, native Golang plugin module, which works fine so far, but we are thinking about changing it to something else. It may come in the next 2 or 3 months or so. Yeah, but in general, think of DevStream core as a state machine, which manages the state of all the DevOps platforms or tools, all the status, all the state, and of all the resources of all the tools and stuff like that. But the actual implementation of the installation, of the upgrade, of the deinstallation, or of the integration of the different tools, that is achieved by each plugin. So developers would build a plugin which can do a specific tool. And that's the idea. So I think the control is in the developers. You can decide how to build it, if you want to build it like idempotent or not. We also try to achieve the idea of DevOps toolchain as code. We have the ability because the core part is only a state machine. We manage everything. We have defined all the interfaces, enabling you to achieve idempotency. But again, whether to choose to implement it or not is in the hand of the developers. Some tools may be not suitable for idempotency, but others might be. So yeah, I think the idea is we don't have a biased opinion. We are like open to every possible tool here. It's not like that we already have the best idea of choosing which tool for which piece. The goal is to be neutral. We don't have a very strong opinion about everything. All the DevOps tools can be integrated. If you decide to make it idempotent, that's up to you. Yeah. So in general, it's a core plugins architecture. The core acts like a state machine, and the plugins does all the implementation. Yeah, that's it.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I always like to tell people that the products and projects are only limited by their connections and your imagination. So fantastic introduction, Tiexin. Thanks. And if you're able to do so, do we have any first issues we want to point out to people that are maybe open and available right now on the project for people to take a look at?
Yeah, to be honest, we had a couple of days ago, but you know, the contributors and the user group, they are so active that they are already resolved. I will make sure I will come up with a few new good first issues in the next 2 or 3 days. Yeah, so stay up to date. Yeah. Perfect,
perfect. Yeah, and for any of you in the audience in our huddle today that want a good first issue to jump into, definitely feel free to reach out to myself on Slack or to Tiexin, to any of us, right? And just ask if you need help finding something to get started on, or need some guidance. That's certainly what we're here for, and we want to make it as easy as we possibly can for people to get started in making contributions to the projects and being part of this adventure with us. Fantastic. So now I'd like to open up the discussion for at least a few minutes for anyone that might have questions for Tiexin or questions about DevStream. This is a great opportunity to dive in. Sanskar, I see you raise your hand. Thanks so much for joining. Feel free to unmute yourself, and then if you don't mind, give just a quick introduction, and then feel free to ask your question and get the discussion started.
Hello everyone, am I audible? Hi, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect.
Very clearly.
I'm using Ubuntu, so I was quite confused because the client is not official. Okay, so first of all, hello everyone. I'm really excited to meet you all, and I'm Sanskar. Currently I'm involved with OSGeo, a PG routing, which is an OSGeo community project, and hoping to participate in Google Summer of Code 2022. I was really excited to see both DevLake and DevStream because I thought that they were new for me, and I explored them. I'm into DevOps, and currently I'm trying to be involved with DevLake. But I have a question for Tiexin. does DevStream is DevStream being used to maintain? Can it be used to maintain the configuration, or is it only being used as an installation tool? Can it? I mean, can it be used for the?
I think we lost you, or is it my connection?
I also lost Sanskar for the last couple of seconds. Sanskar, are you still speaking?
Looks like we might have lost Sanskar's connection.
Yeah, but maybe I don't know. Let me try to rephrase his question. Maybe what I heard is DevStream only used for installation of DevOps tools, or also used for maintaining the configurations, right?
Yes, it was my question. I actually got. I mean, like it was connection error, maybe.
Great. Yeah, actually, that's a very good question because we had a very heated discussion internally, which is whether to use DevStream as a DevOps toolchain as code. Do we only use it as installation for different tools, or do we only use it to maintain different configurations, for example, for CI/CD pipelines and something to that effect, right? I think the idea is up to the developer of each plugin. Because technically speaking, we have defined all the interfaces so that you can completely use it to maintain the configurations. It's just that maybe in some cases, it doesn't make perfect sense. For example, if you are trying to use it to maintain, let's say, GitHub Actions pipelines, workflows, which is defined in YAML files, right? Of course, you can use it to initialize the very first edition of your CI pipelines. But maybe after that, you will try to change or update some of the steps of the pipeline. And when you try to change your pipelines, maybe you want to do it with Git CLI, or maybe directly in GitHub. That's also possible, right? So once you change it, the resource, I mean the configuration, would be drifted from the definition which is inside DevStream. In that case, do we still want to use DevStream as the single source of truth? I think it depends. In this case, maybe not, but in other cases, maybe we should use DevStream as a single source of truth. For example, if we are using DevStream, for example, to maintain Argo CD applications, which are used for continuous delivery, right? You can define every application, every Argo CD application as a YAML file, which is managed by DevStream. If you want to change those YAMLs, or if you want to change how those applications are deployed, you can actually directly change those configurations and use DevStream to reapply those configurations. So no matter which way you choose, they are supported because it's the nature of the core plugin mechanism, since the core only acts as a state machine. But my opinion is maybe not all the tools are suitable to be completely managed by DevStream. But again, this is only in the very initial stage. We will have a lot of discussions later, and maybe you can help us to decide what we are trying to achieve, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. Thanks for your question there, Sanskar. Do you have anything else?
No, thanks a lot. It was really nice. I mean,
fantastic. Thank you for the question, and thanks for the interest in both projects. That's really exciting. Okay, any other questions for Tiexin on DevStream? And then in just a second here, otherwise we will jump into our discussion of DevLake, which is the sister project of DevStream. Okay, so we'll move from DevStream here to DevLake. So I hope all of you are equally excited about both projects, and then ultimately find a home at either one of them to really kind of dive in and to be part of driving forward, these open source data-driven projects that we're so excited and proud to be leading and to be collaborating on with you guys. So we're joined today by Hezheng Yin, Hezheng is the lead maintainer of DevLake. He's also the CTO of Merico, which is the private company that really kind of supported both of these projects to get them started. So we're really lucky to have Hezheng joining us. So Hezheng, thanks so much, and perhaps you can give a brief introduction of yourself, your role in the project, where you are, and we can dive into a bit of background and history and context of DevLake. So thanks so much.
Sounds good. Thank you for the intro, Maxim. And before I get started, I really want to say Tiexin gave a very good introduction to DevStream, and Tiexin should, take more credits for, creating DevStream. Maybe Jinglei and I proposed the idea to Tiexin, but Tiexin really took the idea and then materialize it to reality, right? So I think it's a great project lead for DevStream. And then before I get started into DevLake, so let me share my screen first. I want to quickly go over, the relationship between DevLake and DevStream, how we got started with these projects here at Merico. So at Merico, we are a company that empower developers to analyze, their engineering data. So we extract insights from engineering data, information like their productivity, their quality, their delivery risk, skill set, all this information from the engineering data. Originally, we were very focusing on code analysis. That's our first product, and that's already being used at top internet companies like China, like Huawei, Didi, Tencent. But soon after we shipped the first product, we realized that we're missing out on a lot of information. Writing software is not just about writing code, right? It is an important part, but it's only just a part of the entire software development lifecycle. So we want to get all the data, not just the data in the Git repository, including, starting from the requirement stage, right? Like the information in Jira, and then to, after we write a code, we might run code scanning tools like SonarQube, and we have CI/CD pipelines like Argo, Azure DevOps, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how we got started with DevLake, which is a vertical data lake that collects data from all of these DevOps tools into a single place, and then analyze the data and visualize the data for the developers. And as we launched DevLake in last December, and then gradually get seed users from all over the world, we realized that there's another need, which is, some companies or some seed users of DevLake, they don't already have their DevOps toolchain set up, when we approach them and when they approach us. So that's when we started DevStream, which is a tool to help you manage your entire DevOps toolchain. So if we look at it this way, then DevStream and DevLake are meant to be used together. DevStream is the upstream of DevLake. You first set up your DevOps toolchain with DevStream, and then you collect and visualize, analyze your data with DevLake. So Tiexin and I are also working on the integration of DevLake and DevStream, in this month. We'll be releasing more information soon. So that's the backstory between DevLake, DevStream, and how they got started in Merico.
Fantastic.
So the next slide here. So we already talked about why we built DevLake, which is really to get all the information, right? To cover the entire software development life cycle. But let me give some use cases here. When we talk about analyzing the data, what problems can it actually solve for different kind of developers? So let's say you are an open source maintainer. DevLake can help you collect the data on GitHub and then help you analyze the information of how the community is doing, how you are interacting with your community. Information like how many new issues you have for your community every week, how many PRs you have, how many PRs you merged, how many PRs you closed without merging. All this information we can visualize in a single dashboard for open source maintainers to track the healthy score of their project. Another use case, let's say if you are a developer looking to refactor a code base, you might need some help identifying the refactoring opportunities in your code base. And then you can use DevLake to analyze your Git commit history to figure out if there's some coupling between files by looking at the diff of the commits, and then see if you can identify some refactoring opportunities. And let's say if you're a DevOps engineer in charge of operating your company's CI/CD or pipelines, then you might use DevLake to get the statistics of how many builds you have per day, what's the success rate, how long did every pipeline take on average. So these are some example use cases. As you can imagine, the use case of DevLake is really just limited by what data source we have integrated, and also the imagination or the needs of the developers. So next slide. Here I'm going to briefly talk about the architecture of DevLake. On the high level, it's very simple and elegant. So let's start from where the user interacts with DevLake first. So the user will start an interaction with DevLake from our configuration interface. We call it config UI. It's our front end for developers to configure the data sources, configure data connections, and run pipelines to collect data from your data sources. Once the config UI sends requests to our API server, this is where our framework or core comes in and starting orchestrating our plugins to actually collect data and transforming data from the data sources. So our core framework essentially just orchestrate and run our plugins. And then comes our plugins part. This is where all the magic happens in DevLake. So each plugin will usually support one data source or calculate one metric on top of the data we collected. So we have a pretty simple plugin system. It's also very similar to the plugin system that DevStream is using. And we have documentation on how you can create your plugins easily. The next step is for the plugins to write data that we collected and transformed into our data storage. So here we can use a number of database systems, including popular choices like MySQL and Postgres. And lastly, our user can explore and visualize the data we collected using Grafana dashboard or other ways, other consuming ways that you can connect to our data storage options. So this is the general architecture overview of DevLake. Lastly, we have picked two good first issues. There are more on GitHub actually, but we just want to make sure that we have the bandwidth that to guide you through the process and to review your PR in detail. So we just picked two, but if you're interested, there are more on our website. And before I get started, actually, one quick announcement. So DevLake was accepted into Apache Incubator just 2 weeks ago, and just today actually, our repository was transferred under to the Apache organization on GitHub. So we're still figuring out the logistics, so it might take a while, but as you can see now, our issues link are already reflecting the changes here. So the two good first issues is first, we would like to extend the ability of our GitLab plugin and collect issues information. And the second one is to provide documentation for our REST API. So we have the detailed description in the issue. So feel free to read it. If you have any question, send me a message on Slack and I'm happy to answer it. So that's my part of the introduction to DevLake. Thank you guys.
Amazing. Thank you, Hezheng. Yeah, and for everyone joining us today, you kind of get a sneak preview of what comes next for DevLake, where we're announcing everything with Apache next week. So you get to kind of hear some of the news beforehand, which is really exciting. Great overview, Hezheng, so thanks so much. Hezheng, if you want to remove your screen share, I'll be able to kind of pull up our participants, unless you have anything else to go over. So wanted to see if anyone has any questions or anything they'd like to discuss relating to DevLake. Feel free to raise your hand or feel free to unmute yourself and just ask directly. Fantastic. So it doesn't look like we have any immediate questions. So here's what's next, because we're at nearly 40 minutes today, so I do want to be respectful of everybody's time. So a few things to keep in mind, of course. First off, thank you everyone for joining today. We really appreciate you being part of the DevLake and DevStream ecosystem and communities. We couldn't be building it without you, and we build it together, which is so exciting. If you aren't already on the Slack, make sure to find the Slack and come and join us. That's probably the easiest and fastest way to really get engaged with people, to ask questions, and to really get connected on a personal level with any of the team that you might have questions of or really want to connect with. We're really excited to be meeting everybody. So make sure to feel very comfortable to come and join in, come and ask questions. If you don't know where to go, certainly ask me, and I'll be happy to help you out however I can as one of our community leaders. Other next steps, if you haven't already, of course, really explore the README for both DevStream and DevLake. If you want to make contributions and participate on both projects, that's fantastic, and we're really excited about that. If one of them speaks to you more, is more personally interesting or more personally exciting, certainly we'll be happy for you to just choose one of them. But they are very much related, as Hezheng presented there. So thank you, Hezheng, for that. Beyond that, next steps, read through the README, join the Slack, be sure to explore the first issues. And if you don't find a first issue that connects to you or doesn't feel quite right for you, get in touch with us and we'll be more than happy to help come up with a great first issue for you, to make it easy and welcoming and clear for you to get started on supporting these projects. So thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to, before I close the Zoom room, I'll be posting the links for the Slack groups in the chat. So feel free to leave if you're already there. I see Sanskar raising your hand again. So before we leave there, Sanskar, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, can we have a code-based walkthrough of DevLake? Or maybe after, not in this meeting, maybe some other time. First of all, let me get a hang. I actually explored the libraries that are being used by asking the mentor of the project, Mr. Crash Wong. It was really helpful. And now I'm exploring them. But if we can have a code-based walkthrough, that would be great.
Absolutely. No, it's a great question, Sanskar. So that will, in fact, you predicted perfectly what comes next in our community huddles. So I'll be sharing this out in the Slack groups, because these will be split sessions. Obviously, doing both of these in one session will be too much. But in our next huddles, we'll be doing split code walkthroughs for both projects. So next week we'll share information to do a code walkthrough with Hezheng and others from the DevLake team, and then we will also do the exact same thing with DevStream, so that everyone can get really deeply familiarized and comfortable with the projects. So great question, and thank you for asking that. Excellent. So beyond that, that is our huddle for today. This was a really fantastic turnout, so I really appreciate everybody joining in, being part of the discussion, being part of the community. In the Slack here, I am posting the link for this first one is going to be for the DevStream Slack. And then in just a second, I'll post the link for the DevLake Slack. They are separate groups to stay organized. So if you aren't already in those, be absolutely sure to join. We'll welcome you. We'll get the discussion started and moving in there. That's also where you'll be able to find the most current updates for what's happening in the community. When we schedule events, when we schedule the code-based walkthrough, that's where you'll be able to find that information. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining. So I'll stay on the Zoom room here for a few minutes, and Hezheng and Tiexin will also, in case anyone has any final questions, or if in case you want to discuss anything in a more private setting. But otherwise, feel free to leave the room, and wherever you are in the world, I hope you have a great day or a great night. And thanks so much for joining us today, everybody.
Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you.
And Sanskar, if you still have some time, I'm happy to give you a personal preview of our DevLake code base walkthrough right now.
That would be great. I'm absolutely free. In fact, I'm a night crawler, so I would love to.
Excellent. Excellent.
Okay. So give me 1 second and let me share my screen for the code walkthrough.
Excellent. Yeah, so we're going to transition now directly into that, which is really exciting. Hezheng, thanks for being so willing to do that. That's fantastic. So yeah, we'll jump into the DevLake, at least kind of a private first code base walkthrough here. For any of you that want to stay, definitely stay for that. Otherwise, we'll see you next week for the weekly huddle. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. So yeah, so I think it's gonna be a quick one. Just gonna be, we took a look at our architecture diagram briefly previously. So maybe just let me map each component to the directory so that you know where to get started, where to look for things if you want to work on some issues. So also I'm gonna start with the order of the diagram. So for the configuration interface, it's all in this folder. So all of our React code is in this config UI folder. And there's documentation for how you can set this up locally for development if you want to modify anything. So this is the configuration UI. The second part is our API server. So this is in our API folder. So this is where all of our REST APIs live. Yeah, so this is under the API folders. So as you can see, it's all pretty straightforward just from the naming of the folder. And then for the plugin, they live in this plugin folder. Where is it? It's in here. So we have the interface of the plugin defined in the core directory, and then every other directory is just a plugin. So you can see here we have our facial Git extractor, GitHub, GitLab, Jenkins, Jira, tapd plugins. And then let's pick one plugin as an example. So let's say if we go to GitHub. So the github.go is the entry point to the plugin. So in here, you need to define a plugin struct that complies with the interface of plugin and provides the necessary information for the framework to orchestrate this plugin. And then we have a couple of folders defining the actual, the models, the schema of this plugin's data, and then also the tasks that this plugin actually provides. So usually one task corresponds to one entity that we want to collect. For example, like GitHub issues will have one task, and GitHub PRs will have one task usually. And then lastly is the API here. So sometimes we want to expose some APIs of data source to our configuration interface to make it easier for users to configure their data source. So that's where that API lives. So this is the classic structure of a plugin. And getting back to our root directory, so we have covered the configuration interface, the REST APIs, the plugins, and lastly, I would say let's cover the Grafana directory. So this is where our Grafana dashboards live. So you can see here, so these are the pre-built dashboards. We also have an archive folder which has even more dashboards, but these are the pre-built dashboards that you can directly use out of the box once you set up DevLake and have collected some data from your data sources. And then feel free to contribute your own creative dashboard to us via pull request. So yeah, so Sanskar, I think this will be a really quick, a 20,000 feet quick walkthrough of DevLake's code base. But we're probably going to be working on a blog post to give more detailed information of code-based walkthrough, in the next weeks. Yeah.
That would be great. In fact, I got some of my points really clear by this walkthrough. I was able to understand a quick few things. I was actually following Merico on LinkedIn and found out that they have they're providing new interfaces for DevLake. So I guess that's what it is in Grafana folder, maybe, that you showed just right now. So basically for the front end portion, for the front end part, are we using Grafana or do we have our own front end something?
Great question. So I guess the technical way to answer this is that we have two front ends. One front end that is the configuration UI folder built in React. It's for configuring data sources, creating pipelines, and also tracking the status of the pipelines. The second front end is just our Grafana dashboards. So that's where the user explore and visualize the data after the pipeline finished collecting data. Is that clear?
Oh, okay, that is really clear. In fact, I would be able to get myself started from this point. That was a really productive meeting. Thanks a lot.
You're very welcome, Sanskar.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Sanskar, and Hezheng, thanks for jumping straight in to provide that overview. That was fantastic.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Goodbye.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Sanskar, in case you haven't met all of the kind of core DevLake team, and I know this is not everybody at all, but Hezheng, as you know, is the lead maintainer and CTO of Merico. Klesh, who it sounds like you've met, is also one of the leads on DevLake, and you can find him in Slack, of course. And then Louis Sang, who is also in the Slack, is the product lead. So in this call and in the Slack, you have, in my opinion, three of the most influential people, and certainly some of the most knowledgeable people on the project. So I'm glad to make those connections.
And we also have Warren, or his Chinese name is Intru, here today with us. Warren has been spending a lot of efforts in supporting the community. So he would also be a great guy to reach out to if you have any questions, Sanskar.
I would love to say hello to everyone and would love to gain lots of knowledge from you all and would love to contribute to DevLake. Thanks a lot.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks so much. And so happy to have you be part of our community, Sanskar. So thanks so much for joining and really appreciate the questions and the engagement today.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
I also, before we wrap things up today, also want to just give a shout out and acknowledge Shabam, also Shabam Gupta, who's on the call. Shabam actually joined us on, he has the honor of being the first person on our first call last week. So Shabam, make sure you find him in the Slack and say hello. Shabam, thanks for being one of our earliest adopters and earliest members.
Thank you, Max. It's my honor. Thanks a lot, Max.
Of course. Fantastic. Well, thanks everybody. We're definitely past our time, but I think this was really productive, really exciting. We got to see, all kinds of fantastic insights and background from Tiexin on DevStream. We got the same kind of insights and history from Hezheng on DevLake. We got the surprise code walkthrough, which was such a great treat. And then, of course, you all got the sneak preview of what comes next with Apache, which is really cool. So promise not to tell anybody, but help us spread the word next week, because we'll look forward to kind of sharing that news with the community more broadly next week. Otherwise, join the Slacks. They're in the chat, and I'll make sure to keep posting them. We'll call it a day today. Wishing all of you a good night or a good day wherever in the world you are. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the Slack. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you soon.